As you know, the Meat Eater Live Tour is on April 23rd through May 5th. Chances are in a town near you. What you may not know is you can win tickets to each of these events just by going to a backcountry hunters and anglers pint night. There's going to be a pint night in each of these towns: San Diego, Salt Lake City, Tempe, Anaheim, Boise, Sacramento, Missoula, Portland, Tacoma, where you can compete in Meat Eater trivia and win not only tickets to the show, but a chance to be on stage with all of us. So get your butt to a pint night, and we'll see you on stage.
Welcome to Wired to Hunt's Rut Fresh Radio, bringing you the latest reports from the Whitetail Woods. Presented by First Light, creating proven, versatile hunting apparel for the stand, saddle, or blind. First Light. Go farther, stay longer. And now, your hosts, Casey Smith and Tyler Jones.
This is Rut Fresh Radio. I'm your host, Casey Smith. It is officially Whitetail Hype Week. Everybody is going wild, including the big bucks. We have a big cold front coming in this week across the country, and everybody is stoked. However, you still have to make the right moves. Let's figure out what those are. This is Rut Fresh. Let's go.
Welcome to Rut Fresh Radio, brought to you by First Light Gear. I'm your host, Tyler Jones, and I've got another host here. His name is Casey Smith.
Finally, dude. I actually get to do some work for once. Tyler Jones has been holding it down on the Rut Fresh, dude. Way to go.
It ain't that much work.
Yeah, it's not.
Unless you're me or you.
That's right.
Then it is.
That's right.
Oh,
that's it, man.
No, it's actually a lot of fun to get to talk to all these people, especially when you got, guys like Janis Putelis on the phone with you who could just, tell you just stories that you just key in on, man. Mm-hmm. Somehow people like that can just hold your attention so well, And he's been out there, doing a bunch of stuff up in the upper Midwest. We've got guys from the Midwest doing this. We got guys from the South this week, but everybody is taking rut vacations to the Midwest. So we wanted to have this week be a Midwest heavy episode.
Whitetail radiates out from the Midwest.
For sure.
I mean, it truly does. I love Texas. I mean, we have a rich hunting culture here for whitetail deer especially. Yep. But, I mean, Iowa, Kansas, Illinois, Missouri, that's just what you think of.
And the beauty of those states, man, is like you can go hunt your uncle's property, it's 160 acres, or a public piece, and you stand a chance of like a big deer showing up. But in Texas, you kind of got to have some money to have, most of the time, right? Not all the time.
Yeah,
but
you can feel great about a 40 in Iowa. It's just it's a different animal, and that's why it's cool. Yep. We ain't being critical. It is awesome.
Sure.
And I hope I get to hunt there next year.
Yeah, man.
But it seems as if the cold front has pushed through. There's been some hot weather.
Yeah.
You made some choices according to hot weather.
Bad ones.
Tell me about those choices, Tyler.
Why do I have to tell everybody this? There's like thousands of people that are going to hear how dumb I am.
No.
So you came home from a winter wonderland.
My goodness.
And with a nice buck in tow, potentially.
Thanks, man. Potentially.
And then, we were fixing to get ready to go on our kind of rut vacation. And we're trying to figure out what date. And you're like, going to spend a little bit of time with the family and then go out this day. And I was like, I was going to go a day before you. Well, I looked for my E-tag, but I was looking for the physical version of this E-tag.
It's funny how what the E means, right?
I looked for like an hour and a half, dude. I tore my entire house apart, just my truck. I cleaned my truck pretty much, what I did, and could not find this thing. I was eating dust. I'm highly allergic, so I'm just sitting there just sneezing and throwing a fit, And then I realized, I was like, okay, is it an E-tag? I've never done an E-tag before, so I don't know, maybe. So anyway, yes, I looked for that for a while. I got tired, and I sit down, and I start looking at the trail cameras from this area that we're going, and I'm like, man, there's like no daylight pictures of bucks and hardly even does over the last like 3 days. And I start thinking, you know what? It's been pretty hot, actually. It warmed up a lot after that cold front. And, I mean, in Texas, it's been in the 80s, And so I'm just sitting here thinking, man, let's just look at the weather and see when the hot streak ends. Well, it ends, Thursday for most of the country or whatever is when Wednesday, Thursday is when kind of that cold front starts to come in. And so I was like, okay, well, I'll wait a little bit later to go and do some hunting. And lo and behold, instead of leaving that morning and hunting that afternoon, I decided to leave a few days later. Well, that next morning comes and, no big deal. I think you had just gotten home. I'm doing some work stuff. And then that evening comes around when I should be hunting. And there are some golden pictures of a Mondo 8-point.
There's a couple in there in daylight in the last few days.
Yeah. So it's there's a slope that continuously goes up as it goes to the right on the graph, and it goes up until it starts going back down probably in like maybe mid to late November. Mm-hmm. But it's going up right now, and it is rut movement essentially, right? Mm-hmm. And every day. So, like you have another line that can cross this slope at any point and give you your amount of deer movement, and it's called weather, right? Mm-hmm. And so your weather can help at times. It can move that point up and down this slope of deer movement, right? So we got to the point where we're at the point now where deer movement is about at the peak that it can possibly be at on a standalone basis, mm-hmm. and then. So that the weather doesn't even affect this thing. And whereas like in the last few days, weather kind of still affected it because they're still not fully where the peak of that deer movement is, right?
Good news for you.
So
the XY data point for later this week is real good.
Because the weather's going to push it.
The weather's going to be good. So that's the kind of the shining piece in this thing is that your decision still might have been good because I just checked the trail camera. There's a brand new buck on there.
Oh,
I don't know if he's a shooter or not. He's kind of young, but he's big.
I mean, 170 is a shooter even if he's 2 years old for me.
I guarantee you. He's an 8-point with long tines. But that's anyway, the kind of thing that happened this time.
Yeah, that's what I was getting to is I made a dumb point way too long, but like a good point way too long by being dumb. So anyway, as the days go into November, past that first week even, I think you just, even despite weather being warm, you start to see, and that's where we got to where, we didn't have quite the rut influence and the testosterone influence to have. It was a perfect storm of me looking at cameras, and then all of a sudden it's like, okay, well, it's the 5th or 6th or whatever it is. It's like, it's time. And they just show up anyway, even if it's 70 to 80 degrees or whatever.
Yeah. Well, if you think Tyler and I make good decisions or bad decisions or indecisive, either way, if you want to hear more about what we think about the rut, we've been doing a rut Q&A. We've got a ton of questions about the rut. So if you go check out the Element podcast, we just launched a brand new Q&A on that. And then also coming up soon, if you heard a little allusion to maybe a deer that might have went down up in the North Country on some public ground, you want to hear that story, go check out the Element podcast as well. Mm-hmm. We'll get into that. But today, we're going to get into some rut hype from a couple guys around the country. Who are those dudes?
Well, so we've got our good buddy Reid Strobl, who's been on before at some point in this season. I think he was the first week. He sure was. And he hunts that trifecta area of the U.S. where they don't really know where they're from. Mm-hmm. You know what I'm talking about? Yeah. It's like Indiana, Kentucky, Ohio, maybe Tennessee is even in there. So he's actually killed his first buck with a trad bow in Indiana this week. So he's giving us a report from Indiana, which is a state that you don't hear. It kind of flies under the radar a little bit, but it has the potential to have big deer. In fact, I think the number 2 typical from last year, the number 2 typical in the world came from Indiana, right?
I don't remember.
I believe so.
But I do know that there are some giants there. I talked to a guy a few years back that had a ranch there or a farm, whatever they call them up there, and monsters.
We also have, like I mentioned earlier, our good buddy Janis Putelis. He's been up in Wisconsin doing the Latvian thing up there and hunting them deer. Is that they call that Eastern Europe? What is that?
Wisconsin?
No, Latvia.
Yeah, sure. It's I don't know for sure where it's at.
There is a polka influence in Wisconsin, right? That's what I remember when we put together the Illinois buck truck, and we were real close to Wisconsin. There was a bunch of people telling me that polka music was big up there. Jake Hofer, another good buddy of ours, who's one of those guys like Sam Hogan. If you heard him last week, he is like just the humble, laughy guy that pretends like he can't kill deer, and then every year he ends up killing mondos.
And he also has got his thumb on the pulse, dude.
Oh, he does.
Like, he is tack sharp.
Yeah, dude. Listen, if you know this guy, do not tell him anything.
That's right.
Okay, he will figure it out. He makes fun of us for finding all his spots because we have, but he will do the same back to you. So you got to watch that guy, Jake Hofer in Illinois. Man, he's got a good report. Killed a nice buck, and then Leigh McNasty from Louisiana, down south, hanging out in the swamps, getting McNasty down there. He's been out hunting, actually in the Midwest, in Missouri, but he's now back in his, I guess, home state of Louisiana, right? And he's doing some hunting around there, so he's got a good report for us from the south. Things are starting to pop off there as well. So we're going to get all these guys on the phone and see what is going on all throughout the Midwest and there in Louisiana. Once again, world famous Reid Strobl, the man who first made the mullet popular. What's going on, dude?
Man, that is quite the intro. What's going on?
What's
going on, guys?
Just interviewing a guy who's killed a buck in Indiana. What about you?
Yeah. I'm just, been hunting really hard, talking to a couple Texas guys that are working hard right now. So we're doing good.
You got some buddies up there that are from Texas, and y'all been deer hunting a little bit, right? How's it been?
Yes, sir. It's been incredible. This weekend just was pretty much textbook, as hard a pre-rut as you could get. Cold fronts, real cold in the morning, good evening sits, warm up, and basically we had deer around us. We hunted Saturday morning, saw 5 deer, 3 bucks, 2 does. I killed my buck on that evening, Saturday evening, and then we killed 2 more bucks yesterday morning on Sunday the 5th. 2 bucks back to back in 30 seconds.
That's maximizing the rut right there. Okay, so
that's right.
We got to unpack this just a little bit. Okay, that's a special thing to happen. What's the tactic? Because they had to be kind of connected, right? What's the tactic that made that happen?
Yeah, absolutely. So the 3 bucks are separating on 2 separate properties. But so mine was actually, hunting on private land at my folks, which was really cool. I killed my first buck with traditional equipment, and he was right mouth open, working a bench and checking, he stopped for, I actually shot him while he was moving. He basically never really stopped. He's just kind of slowly trotting through, and shot him at 8 yards, double lung, and he literally died in 20 yards. Never knew it happened. Yeah, it was incredible.
So he did go 20.
Literally went 20. Yes, that's right. Literally went 20. Just, oh man. Yeah. Incredible. He didn't even know what happened. He stood underneath my tree and had the wobbles, underneath me, and then did a death dive and died and rolled down the hill at 20 yards. It was while my buddy from Texas who drove, didn't sleep for 36 hours, watched the entire thing happen.
That's cool.
It is cool, man.
Died right in front of his tree. It was incredible.
Nice.
Nice. But yeah, he was working, basically we were set up on a bench. We had the wind in our favor, expecting him, deer to be working that bench, trying to catch a set of a hot doe. Yeah, essentially. Yeah.
So cruising bucks is the thing, and you're finding benches on terrain that do that. Are those deer using the wind mostly, or is it they're just coming in to a place they know does hang out, or what's that look like?
The 3 bucks that we've had, less one of them. One was a little different than the other ones, but 2 were wind in their favor. They're working these benches in the morning. We had killed the one, working a bench, trying to catch those rising thermals. And then my buck was at the lowest bench on the ridge or on the hill face, and trying to pull those thermals down to him. And we were set up just below him.
Gotcha. So are those benches heading towards food source, or are they heading towards doe bedding?
Yeah. So the one that both of them are coming from bedding going to a food source was the travel route or vice versa. One was coming even 1 in the morning. So they're basically going to the food source or coming back, and these benches are running from one to the other. And then the biggest of the 3 bucks, we rattled in and I had him at 28, and he swung to get our wind, boogered on us, and went straight up the hillside and walked 15 yards underneath my buddy, his biggest buck of his life. And killed it with his grandpa's compound, an old 84 Oneida. So that was really, really cool. It was an incredible experience, and actually had to use a drone to end up finding it.
That's
so we
cool.
found it. It was very interesting, but it did work. He went 700 yards. It was a gut shot, and found him 700 yards and went and got him this morning.
How about that? No wanting waste up in your neck of the woods, man. Good stuff, man.
Exactly.
So,
good. All means necessary.
Yeah. So in the next week, do you expect things to be very similar?
We've got the next couple of days. From trail cameras, we just pulled a couple cams. Things were really, really hot over the weekend. I think it's going to slow down for a day or two, but we've got a front coming in on Thursday. And I think it's going to fire up, and this weekend's going to be really good. They're pushing hard, and I've noticed it's been a lot of younger bucks that have been pushing the does. I don't know quite how many. I haven't seen a doe and heat with 5 bucks chasing her by any means yet, but I think those mature bucks this week into this weekend is going to be when you see what everyone's looking for, the crazy ride. Where
I like to hear it, man.
You don't know what's going to happen.
If you had to rank it on a scale of 1 to 10, what are you going to call it?
I'm going to give the next 2 days a good old 5 probably, but I'm giving Thursday to Saturday a 9.
Ooh, that's a high number. Let's go. Cool, Reid. We'll appreciate it, man.
I'm gonna put a high number on it. I think it's gonna be really good. We're gonna see some big ones get killed. I think.
That's awesome, dude. Well, congrats on all the success y'all are having up there, man, and I can't wait to see the next big buck picture you send us.
Yes, sir. Appreciate y'all.
On the phone, I have got Janis Putelis with Meat Eater. He is in Wisconsin hunting up some whitetail deer. Janis, what's going on, man?
I'm hammering, man. I'm putting in my rutcation. It's gone from rutcation to the rut grind. That's what's going on.
Yeah. Where is the pivot point on that exactly?
I would say it's probably around day 6 or 7 for me, because I think I'm about 9 days in. So I was pretty high spirited all the way through that, but I also hit a buck and didn't recover it, and so that's been a little bit of a low point, a little bit of a hole I'm climbing out of. But I got 1 day left, and the weather's going to be nice and cool, and the wind's going to be calm in the morning. So I'm looking forward to hopefully 1 more day of good rut hunting.
Yeah, man, that's good. I'm sorry you didn't recover that buck, but that's bow hunting. It's a very cliche thing to say, but if you are a bow hunter, you understand that for sure. You have a big time span there that you've spent in the woods. So I'm sure you've got to see like the rut come alive almost, which is like a really great privilege. But what have the deer been doing the past few days there in Wisconsin?
Just the past few days, when I shot my buck, he was on his feet at 3:30 in the afternoon, just cruising, just cutting across doe trails that led from a ridge down to a standing cornfield, and I knew I had a half dozen trails going up and down from the does, and there was a trail going across all of them, and I figured some bucks would be cruising it, and sure enough, he was at 3:30. Just about every day this week, I've had all day activity of some cruising of some sort. Surprisingly, the only day that I've actually seen a buck with a doe was October 30th.
That
was the one day I saw
big front, I guess, huh?
100%. I got in here right when that front got here, and I was 1 day late. I missed the first day of it, but then I was in the tree on the 30th. And they came by me right at first light. It was too dark still to shoot. But like I said, ever since then, it's been good activity. almost all day long. I'm hunting the ridge tops mostly so I can have good wind. And they seem to be more active, more action up there in the mornings. My evenings up there tend to be a little bit slower. And so I've been, the last few days, aside from looking for that buck, I've been moving off the ridge tops and trying to hunt down closer towards the ag and the valley bottoms in the evenings.
You've mentioned the wind a couple of times, Janis. Can you kind of explain the dynamic you have going on there? What hypothesis you have as to why the evenings are slower than the mornings, or vice versa? Or what all's going on there exactly?
Well, I wish I knew, Tyler.
You'd have a dead deer, maybe.
It's very hilly country. We've got about 200 to 250 feet of elevation relief between the valley bottoms and the ag and these ridge tops. And some of these draws and valleys aren't more than, a couple 300 yards apart. And so when you get anything that picks up over 10 miles an hour, really, when it comes across those ridge tops and then it drops into these bowls, who knows what it's doing? I'm still trying to figure all that out.
So this is country that you grew up hunting, right? This is kind of like your childhood deer camp. And I know just from talks with you, you kind of came into archery hunting as an adult a little bit more. So how has your approach changed in that type of country as you kind of have to change your tactics?
It's big woods country. There's no, besides the little bit of ag that's at the foot of the hills, otherwise everything, all the land, the 400 or 500 acres I have access to is basically just all big, mature oak forest. There's been some clear cutting done in there and some selective cutting, but for the most part, you're hunting woods. And so finding the edge habitat, finding the funnels is tricky. It's not easy to do. So a lot of times the easiest thing to do is just find where 3 or 4 ridges come together and set up on the downwind side of that. But I'd say the biggest thing that's just changed from being just a kid coming up here rifle hunting to, now being a bow hunter is just having to, take what you think about the deer movement in this country and just pinpoint it down to a place where you're going to have a 20-yard shot.
Mm-hmm. Are there any acorns falling?
It's funny because they're actually not, because they've all fallen, but there are places where you will literally roll down the hill like they're ball bearings. Because we had such a good acorn crop this year. A lot of them actually, some of the, like one of my spots I love to hunt, I call it the Oak Flat. It's just kind of one of those ridge tops, but it opens up and it's 80 yards across. And I walked that thing and it's just been picked clean. So the bears and the deer and the turkey have all been in there just hammering those acorns. So there's a few places where you can find a bunch of them, but the critters have been on them.
Mm-hmm. Well, we have another cold front that's supposed to kind of move through the country over the next week. And I know that you're fixing to wrap up your hunt here, but as any good hunter, I'm sure you're sitting there thinking about just what might happen in the woods going forward. What do you expect the deer to be doing here in the next week?
Well, it seems like with that cold front, the pressure is also going to come up, and it sure seemed like over the last week when that pressure was high, there was a little bit more movement than when it dropped off, which, I think everybody knows that they tend to move more when the pressure's up. So that's coming with this cold front, so that's going to be good. But I'd say in general, it's just going to keep getting better and better and better. And I still think from today, which is the 7th, right, guys?
Yeah, they might be the 6th. Yeah, but this will go out on the 8th.
6th or 7th. Mm-hmm. It's been a long stretch for me. I feel like there's still going to be 2 or 3 good days of just that, like, good kind of seeking, cruising activity until you start getting some bucks that are going to be more into, finding their doe and getting locked down. And then you're going to get into that part where you're like, oh man, nothing's going on. But it's just because you're not in that spot where everything's going on,
So with all this in mind, if you had to put a number on it on a scale of 1 to 10, what would you like guess that the buck movement is going to be like in the next week?
9.
All right. Hey, you're like the third
But
guy.
I'm an eternal optimist, and I've been hunting I'd say like a 6 or a 7. And I just feel like it's going to ramp up again with, like you guys said, with this next cold front. And so, yeah, man, it's going to be good. I wish I had more days.
Yeah, man.
I appreciate the optimism, dude. And the cumulative score this week is like really high. We're looking at
nearly a 40.
It's like 38. So yeah, it's officially Whitetail Hype Week, and we appreciate you being on to share the hype, Janis. Thanks, man.
Yeah, you're welcome. Thank you, guys.
As you know, the Meat Eater Live Tour is on April 23rd through May 5th. Chances are in a town near you. What you may not know is you can win tickets to each of these events just by going to a backcountry hunters and anglers pint night. There's going to be a pint night in each of these towns: San Diego, Salt Lake City, Tempe, Anaheim, Boise, Sacramento, Missoula, Portland, Tacoma, where you can compete in Meat Eater trivia and win not only tickets to the show, but a chance to be on stage with all of us. So get your butt to a pint night, and we'll see you on stage.
Jake Hofer is on the way to Iowa, but he's been in Illinois hunting big bucks in a state that has a lot of them sometimes. At least in the past it has, Jake. Jake, you killed one recently, right?
Yeah, man. I was fortunate enough to notch my Illinois tag on November 3rd in the evening, about 5:30.
Golly, this is one less big one in Illinois now.
Yeah, for sure. One less, but there's still a few running around.
Yeah. So that's kind of early in the rut for the scheme of things, and I know you pretty well, and I feel like you usually you're kind of playing it safe and being conservative and slipping in on one a little later in the year usually. So I was just surprised that you went ahead and killed this early. Was there something that you really picked out on this deer that was like the tactic to go to?
You know, I wish I could sound really smart and tell you all these different things I had figured out, but I was in Iowa hunting. I hunted in Iowa for 8 days, and I was in the stand Friday morning. I was like, man, I really feel like I can go back and kill a solid deer in Illinois over the weekend before things really crank off in Iowa. And so I packed up at 10 o'clock, drove straight to the farm. And November 3rd has always been one of my favorite days. I feel that there's a lot of solid deer covering some distance. And I did some work on this farm, and ironically drove straight to the farm. This was the first time I ever set up in this new mousetrap, and it worked perfectly. It was a deer covering some distance. Not a deer that I had around very often. I had some velvet pictures of him, and it was just the classic. He was looking for a doe, I think. And there were some other good deer that started to show up on that farm. And I think one of the biggest challenges this year is being there before it happens. And there was just the inkling of information that things were starting to get really good there. So I drove straight there and read the script 20 yards and had an Illinois buck down after like 3 hours in the blind there. So it was one of those weird things that doesn't work out often, but holy cow, when it does, you feel kind of smart.
Mm-hmm. Hey, can you explain what the mousetrap is?
Absolutely. So the mousetrap, so when I got this farm, there was a blind on it, and it was a situation where you'd have to, the access to the blind wasn't ideal. You'd have to walk where they're bedded, or probably going to see you walk in. You have to walk straight through the food plot and lay down a lot of ground sense. So what I did this year is I moved that blind and actually dozed in the new access road just straight down this hill. And I could slip right in, not even step foot into the food plot. And the architecture of the plot, there's a really good pinch where your shot's going to be 15 to 20 yards. And you're going to see them coming, and that's exactly what happened. I mean, it worked exactly how I imagined when I did it. And that's really rewarding just to see some of that work actually pay off and everything come together, because it makes up for all the times where it doesn't work out yet. You haven't planned. So was the deer eating in the food plot, or was he cruising? He was cruising, yeah. So he was cruising. I seen him, and when I saw him, I was like, man, this deer has a big frame. And I was like, you kind of go through that archive in your brain as fast as possible as you see him coming. And I was like, man, he's got a big frame. I think he's got a sticker on his too. And so that, in the back of my mind, I was like, I'm pretty sure I had one in the summer that was like that. And it was definitely that deer. And it was kind of funny. I grunted at him. He was 20 yards. I probably shouldn't have grunted at him. I know there's a debate. Do you stop the deer or do you not? And I tried stopping him. I was already at full draw. And he whipped and looked square at me. And so he's looking square at me. I'm not taking that shot. And then he started to quarter away, but it was still a hard quartering 2 shot. And I put it right in his armpit. And I didn't see him go down. And this is probably timely information for everyone. I did not see him go down. I got my arrow, and I felt it was a good shot, but I was a little concerned with how hard he was quartering to. If my shot was just 2 inches further back, it was probably going to be a straight stomach shot, but it ended up being a heart, lung, and stomach shot. And there was not a lot of lung blood or anything on the arrow. It was mainly stomach. So I backed out overnight, and then we got a dog, and we found the deer, really only 120 yards from where I shot him. So we played it safe, and it worked out perfectly.
Nice. Yeah, I'm glad that went good for you. So, going forward, that was like the first week in November, right? Now we're kind of looking at somewhat the second week in November. Do you still feel like those deer are going to be on that seeking type activity, or would you think that guys might move in from the field edge and go kind of more to the thick stuff?
I think now is probably the time where you want to start going to that big stuff. And a lot of the cameras I have on food sources right now, there's still some does in there, and there's some food sources that are quite a bit, a lot less activity than maybe a week or so ago. And I have to imagine that now's the time to get in the classic downwind of bedding or a really good pinch and log hours. And I think that's probably a really good tactic for right now to hopefully get an opportunity at a buck you've been running around chasing.
Yeah, sweet, man. I'm excited to tell you the truth after talking to you about this stuff. If you had to give the next week a ranking from a scale of 1 to 10 on buck movement, what would you give it?
Man, so I would say historically, so November 3rd, November 10th are my favorite days. Obviously, November 10th is this week, so whether it's slightly biased from past experience, I'm going to give this thing a 9 out of 10. I think it's going to be really good. We have this front rolling in, and I think those really big deer are going to start running around. I know it's dependent on the country, but in Illinois, if you're listening, I would get a little aggressive, and I would go log some hours at 8, 9, 10, 11, and really enjoy it, because it'll only be those days once this year, believe it or not.
Man, I love it, dude. Thanks for the report. Thanks for the hype. Let's go, Jake. Kill a big one in Iowa.
All right, fingers crossed. Good catching up.
On the phone, I have got Louisiana's own Leigh McNasty. You might have seen him in some videos like How Third Grade Girls Fight and other things, but the dude is also a big buck killer. Man, what's going on down there in Louisiana?
Oh, nothing much. Just trying to wait on the big ones down here. I just got back from Missouri. Now I got to see if I can get it done in Louisiana.
Hot dog. Louisiana is one of those places that has like quite a variety of rut dates, correct?
Oh, absolutely.
So how do you time that kind of stuff out? Can you travel 40 miles this way and hunt a rut in early November and travel 40 miles that way and hunt late December and have a rut?
Yeah, I actually believe you can. I haven't personally done it, not that I wouldn't, but I want to say, I don't want to butcher it or be wrong about it, but I think up in northern Louisiana, the rut might start a little bit earlier. Where I'm from, normally we can kind of rely on the rut to happen around Thanksgiving. I can't count the times I've seen good buck movement on Thanksgiving Day, and I actually killed one on Thanksgiving last year. And I want to say in December, that might be when bucks are running around down in southern Louisiana.
Man, the old swamp bucks down there. That's cool. Yeah. So you've been out a little bit this week. What tactics are you kind of hitting trying to catch that pre-rut action?
Right now I've been currently just wanting to see what the deer are doing right now. Most of it's just hunting creek bottoms where we know we've got good pictures of deer traveling through. But right now it's just been a lot of does still with their fawns, and younger bucks cruising around eating. But I personally haven't seen much of even the early signs of the rut, but that's always the case around this time in my experience.
Are you hunting food plots or acorn trees or, oak trees or whatever? Or, what are you focused on?
Well, on our lease that we actually have a lot of success with, I don't know if you've heard of them bran bags. We use a lot of rice bran.
Oh, yeah.
Because, man, that we've been using this persimmon rice bran, and it almost seems like that's just candy to the deer there. And strangely enough, I've got another spot I hunt to where bran doesn't work as well. So I don't know. These deer just seem so accustomed to it here.
So do you have to keep that stuff up off the ground to where it doesn't like get wet? Or how does that work?
We don't. I mean, we've never had a problem with that. If we do, where it does rain, like when you go to your stand, we'll just walk out and kind of kick out all the kind of solidified bran just to kind of let the fresh bran fall. But it's almost like a gravity bag to where it kind of keeps refreshing.
Do you guys have persimmon trees in your area?
I think we do, but not. I think I kind of misheard what you were saying. I thought you were talking about just in Louisiana. I don't know if we have persimmon around where I'm hunting. We might, but I don't think I've ever seen one.
Gotcha. Yeah, I was interested because we did a test on that with flavored corn a while back, and persimmon did pretty well, if I remember correctly, in that video.
Yeah.
So, we have persimmons around, though, so I just wondered if there was some sort of correlation between that.
Right.
But anyway, so you the movement hasn't been – you haven't seen hardly any rut movement. Have you seen decent just bed to feed, normal daylight activity, or is it mostly at night?
Well, I mean, we've got two. I call them our shooter bucks. They're two good deer. One's like a real tall brow tine 9-point and a good looking 10. But most of theirs has been night. But they have kind of come out and started feeding. I realized one of them came out at this was before the time change the other day, but it came out around 7 a.m. to where if somebody was in the stand, they could have got him before right after shooting hours. But right now, I don't know. It seems like we're in that stage right now to where now the bucks are the big mature deer are kind of disappearing now, because it always seems like right before the rut, your bucks want to kind of disappear and stop coming to your food sources that we put out. So, I mean, right now it's just been, I think the last buck I saw when I went hunting, I think 2 days ago, was a good young 8. He was a big bodied deer, but I'm still not even seeing deer open up scrapes around. But in my opinion, I think it's a matter of time, maybe within this week, before you start seeing all those signs like that.
So, that's what I kind of want to ask you about next is, as this next week progresses, if you start seeing scrapes pop up and stuff, is that going to be something that you focus on?
I think so. During that time, I feel like it's very common to kind of start seeing those cruiser bucks coming around and just kind of wait on them to check on stuff and, all that stuff.
Yeah, for sure. So looking forward then, I know you mentioned Thanksgiving type of rut, so we're still very much pre-rut, but that's ramping up every day. If you had to give it a prediction on a scale of 1 to 10, how do you feel like buck movement will be back or be like over the next week?
In my opinion, I would probably give it a 7. Other people might disagree or agree, but I mean, I would think it would be kind of like that week to where you can really expect to see some different movement.
Yeah, it's a good time to catch a deer on his feet slipping for the first time, huh?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, cool, man. Well, hey, I really appreciate the report. It's cool to get to talk to somebody from Louisiana, and keep it up, dude. Look forward to some big buck pictures.
Awesome. I appreciate y'all getting in touch with me.
As we said before, the hype is real. It is the second week in November. There is nowhere else you should be except maybe your own wedding or the birth of your child. Get in the woods right now because the deer are going crazy all across the country. Tyler Jones, my associate right here, my friend, my hunting partner, my buddy, has definitely got his tab on the whitetail. And I do believe that Tyler Jones was featured in an article this past week. North American Whitetail, potentially?
Oh, yeah. I need to go try to pick a copy of that up.
We'll put a link to that in the description. I think it's an online article. There might be a hard copy. I don't know. I think you're your buck is centerfold in that thing.
Yeah.
Speaking of spotlighting things.
Yeah. Sorry, man.
It's all good.
No, it was, I was pretty surprised to find that out, actually. But that's pretty cool, man. I think that's pretty cool,
Yeah.
I mean, I'm going to go get me a hard copy because I think that the picture I saw on social was a hard copy. But
that would be sick.
Yeah, it's pretty cool. Speaking of articles, though, they're on the Wired to Hunt feed or whatever you want to call it on the website is a 3-day rut hunt plan from Dylan Tramp. It's an article, 3 days is what a lot of guys get, man. Mm-hmm. Take off on a Friday, hunt through Sunday, or take off on Thursday evening, hunt Friday, Saturday, Sunday. That's what you got. So there's a 3-day rut hunt plan article there. It might help you out, give you some thoughts, some creative juices, get them flowing. And then also we released a video on the Meat Eater channel just now. If you're listening to this, it's probably a day old or so. You should go watch the video. KC is featured in this video as a guy smoking a big old, just heavy toad of an 8 million point animal out in Nebraska. It's an awesome video, little drama involved, doing some new tactics that you've never encountered.
That's what you call uncomfortable. But it's just, people talk all the time about getting out of your comfort zone, and it's good. For sure. But sometimes I don't realize what my comfort zone is. I always think that that just means doing something harder. No, sometimes it just means doing something a lot different than what you're used to.
Yeah.
And I definitely did that on this hunt and had to kind of, you don't want to say fly by the seat of your pants, but definitely make adjustments to what I was used to. And
I can attest, it was difficult for me too. I mean, shooting out of them things was wild. Hay bale blinds. If you never hunted out of one, it's cool. But it's also very particular the way things work out of there.
Yes, yeah, especially with some guy running a big shiny lens behind you. Not a lot of room and a lot of hot air in there. A lot of breaths.
Lots of breaths. Anyway, man, thank you guys for listening. I hope you enjoyed it. We'll be back next week with more Rut Fresh Radio reports from all across the country. KC, let's go kill some big old bucks.
Let's do it.
This has been Rut Fresh.
Keep it fresh.
As you know, the Meat Eater live tour is on April 23rd through May 5th. Chances are in a town near you. What you may not know is you can win tickets to each of these events just by going to a backcountry hunters and anglers pint night. There's going to be a pint night in each of these towns: San Diego, Salt Lake City, Tempe, Anaheim, Boise, Sacramento, Missoula, Portland, Tacoma, where you can compete in Meat Eater trivia and win not only tickets to the show, but a chance to be on stage with all of us. So get your butt to a pint night, and we'll see you on stage.